Bishop Matthews, Bishop McCluskey, Conference Secretary, our lay leader, brothers and sisters, or may I simply call you friends, I stand before you privileged, as you know, to serve as your Director of Communication. But this is an exciting time, if we can have a slide, for Upper New York Annual Conference. Because I stand excited, happy to announce the launch of Hands for New York. Hands for New York. Let's give it a hand, even before we know more about us. Hands for New York is a joint project between the Upper New York Annual Conference and the United Methodist Communication. Upper New York is partnering with United Methodist Communication for this project. In a few seconds, you're going to hear from our conference coordinator for the project and our visiting delegate, Jennifer Roy, from the United Methodist Communication. I'm sure you're wondering, what is Hands for New York? You had seen the bags, and I'm sure you were asking. One of the projects for Hands for New York is feeding 1 million people a year. Did you hear what I said? Feed 1 million people a year. And I know that sounds like a huge number, but think about this. Feeding 1 million people requires us to feed only 2,790 people a day. We have 937 churches. So if every church participated, only 3 people a day. If every church in our conference participated in feeding people, 3 people a day, we'll be able to feed that 1 million people this year. How are we going to do this? Allow me to introduce Sharon Bassett, who will give us details about feeding 1 million people a year. Let's hear that. 1 million people a year. Sharon.
Thank you, Maidstone. Bishop Matthews. I'd like to ask, before I get started, to have a little participation on your part, so if you would help me out. I would like to ask those to stand who have provided a food for a food pantry or help out in a food pantry, or maybe you even have one in your church. So I'd ask you to stand. How about anyone who has helped out with a soup kitchen? If you aren't standing, stand. And if you conducted food drives or been involved in a community garden, we'd like you to stand. Or maybe you have provided a school backpack program. Look around you. All of you are standing. This is a great show of all that we are doing. If you could take your seats, please. As you can see, this is all that we're doing in this great conference to address hunger in our communities. In your packets, conference packets, you received, a white packet that looks like this. If you haven't opened it, I'm asking you to open it now. And inside, you will find a Hands for New York button that looks like this. And I'm going to ask you to take a moment and pin on that button, please. And Bishop Matthew and the rest of you up here, I have buttons for you.
Thank you.
More to go. Sorry. This button button represents what Hands for New York initiative is all about. It's an opportunity to continue the great work already happening in our churches and communities to feed the hungry. It's a way for us to add new programs and new ways to feed and provide food to those in need. It's an initiative that gives us a means to work together, working side by side to raise our hands to fight hunger in upstate New York. Our goal in this program is to show our communities in the upstate New York what more than 185,000 Methodists in 937 churches can do to address the hunger that lives in our neighborhoods. As we know, poverty contributes to the number of people searching every day for their next meal. The Upper New York area is home to 6 million people, where the poverty rate is 13%. In Buffalo, Syracuse, Rochester, and Utica alone, more than 40% of our children live below the poverty line. Hunger is a result of what the U.S. Department of Agriculture calls food insecurity, meaning that households that are uncertain of having or unable to acquire enough food to meet the needs of all their members because they had insufficient money or other resources for food. In the New Living Translation, Isaiah 58 says, "Feed the hungry and help those in trouble. Then your light will shine out from darkness, and the darkness around you will be as bright as noon." And so Jesus calls us in Matthew 25 to feed the hungry. Hands for New York is a partnership between us in the Upper New York area and United Methodist Communications Rethink Church program, a partnership that will bring awareness in addressing the hunger needs in our communities through multiple marketing means. In just a few minutes, we will hear from Jennifer Rodia, UMCOM's director of the Rethink program. As Maidstone mentioned, Hands for New York has two major goals. The first goal is, what did we say, to feed? 1 million people. Correct, great. 1 million people in 1 year. The second involves hunger impact events that will be held on October 15th of this year, 2011, in each of our districts. As we saw earlier when all of us stood, we are already having a great start towards meeting the 1 million people a year. Watch us as this number grows and exceeds throughout 2011 and into 2012. As our partner, UMCOM will purchase billboard space along major highways in upstate New York, publicly tracking our efforts. This is an exciting way for our neighbors to see what's happening in upstate New York in the fight against hunger. It's also designed to set the stage for our second goal. Beginning this June 2011 and ending 2012, we invite you to report quarterly your number at hands4newyork.org. We will provide you with a way for figuring out the number of people that are being fed through your feeding programs that you have currently, and hopefully will find new ways of initiating programs. Put this date on your calendar. because on October 15th, we're asking you to join a district team that will plan and implement an impact event. Creating hunger impacts events in each district will create community and church partnerships that builds exciting momentum in addressing this hunger need. These events will be designed to attract our 18 to 34-year-olds seeking hands-on mission work while building those lasting relationships that we know are so important. As a result, we will begin and support sustainable programs in our communities to alleviate hunger. Some of these impact events might involve working with local farms to glean crops and deliver them to local food banks and food pantries. Create a Fill a Backpack program that provides food to children when school's not in session. October is not the time to plant a garden, but perhaps we can prepare a community garden for next year's planting. And these are only a few ideas, and all of you are so creative that we are sure that you will come up with many more ways that we can build with our community a program that will sustain hunger, to reduce that hunger and be sustainable. There's 3 steps for success in this program. The first is to evaluate. That means evaluate your current feeding programs in your church. Research your community's greatest hunger needs and grow your current programs or develop new initiatives. Talk with your district coordinator. Join the team to help develop and implement the event. Promote the event, and then work with your community to build those authentic relationships that I mentioned. And then raise your hands on October the 15th and go out with your community and work on those projects. And then celebrate afterwards all the work that we have done with each other in building relationships and finding these new ways to eliminate hunger in upstate New York. In that packet that I spoke of earlier, you will find materials that can help you to use to inform your churches about Hands for New York. Look through that material and use that when you go back to your churches and get them involved. Stop by our booth and talk with us about Hands for New York, and we can explain to you how your church can be a part of this great opportunity to raise a hand to stop hunger. And get your churches involved and volunteer to help us plan these events.